Yellowstone calls out its most baffling detail just before it ended. The Yellowstone finale closes out various storylines and brings character arcs full circle, but it also addresses one of the show's most puzzling and debated aspects. Taylor Sheridan's neo-Western drama, supposedly, ended in December 2024, more than 6 years since its premiere, following the last episode of Season 5, Life is a Promise. The finale features all the Yellowstone Season 5, Part 2 characters going their separate ways. They start new chapters in their lives, including one ranch hand who asks for a job from a familiar face. The Duttons try to save the ranch during Yellowstone's ending, while Beth seeks vengeance for John's death, and everyone decides what to do after leaving the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch. Thankfully, most of these stories are given complete endings before the credits roll. Case sells the land to Chief Rainwater for $1.25/acre. Its cost when the Duttons first acquired it, on one condition: he and his family can keep their home at East Camp. As for Beth, she finally kills Jamie and gets away with it, winning the Dutton family war. By the end, the ranch hands also move on, including Teeter. After learning she would soon be out of a job, Teeter asks Travis to join him at Bosque Ranch in Yellowstone Season 5, Episode 14. Travis tries warning her against it, seeing that he's a strict boss. But Teeter pushes on, needing to find work and wanting to get out of Montana, away from where Colby died. Travis agrees and gives her money. He tells Teeter to use it to buy an audiobook and learn how to speak *******ing English, because I don't talk hillbilly. And I ain't trying to *******ing learn. Ever since Teeter's introduction in Yellowstone Season 3, her strong Texan accent has baffled the characters and the audience, many of whom have difficulty understanding her. Jennifer Landon, who plays Teeter, doesn't have a Southern accent in real life, meaning the one she uses in this show is fake. So Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone character, pointing out this confusing detail, feels like he's poking fun at himself and the series for coming up with Teeter's accent. Teeter's strong accent has been a topic of debate among fans since she joined the cast in Yellowstone Season 3. Some claim that is really how some Texan women talk, while others from the state believe it's unrealistic. Whatever the case, Teeter's accent is part of what makes her stand out from the crowd. Per Looper, Jennifer Landon once said during an episode of the official Yellowstone podcast, "Teeter always made sense to me. I always knew exactly what she was saying." Perhaps Landon can reprise her role in a Yellowstone spinoff and continue confusing viewers. Yellowstone has long been one of the most compelling dramas on television, drawing millions of viewers into the sprawling, unforgiving world of the Dutton family. Its rich storytelling, fierce family dynamics, and gritty exploration of power, land, and loyalty have captivated audiences for years. But just before its epic conclusion, Yellowstone took a bold step by calling out one of its most baffling details, a moment that changed everything for fans, offering a meta-commentary on the very essence of the show itself. The series at its core is about survival. The Dutton family, headed by patriarch John Dutton, played by Kevin Costner, has fought tooth and nail to protect the land they hold dear. The land isn't just property. It's a legacy, a symbol of power, and a battleground for everything from ranching rights to political intrigue. But as the show reached its conclusion, it became increasingly clear that the land itself wasn't the only thing being fought for. Identity, loyalty, and the Dutton name were being called into question in ways we hadn't seen before. One of the most baffling details of Yellowstone, and the one that would become the focal point of the show's final moments, was the ambiguous portrayal of the Dutton family's true purpose. Over the years, the Duttons had been positioned as rugged, iconic figures who fought for their land with a fierce, almost mythical devotion. But as the series progressed, cracks began to show. John's leadership, which had once seemed invincible, was called into question by those closest to him, including his children. Beth Kelly Riley was fiercely loyal to her father, but her loyalty often seemed more like a destructive obsession. Case, Luke Grimes, the youngest Dutton son, had his own visions of what the future could be, diverging from his father's path in ways that suggested an underlying conflict within the family dynamic. And then there was Rip Wheeler, Kohlhauser, the steadfast ranch hand and eventual Dutton family member by marriage. His undying loyalty to John Dutton made him a pivotal part of the show, but Rip's relationship with the family was also one of the most complicated. As John's right-hand man, Rip represented a kind of stability, yet his own personal desires were frequently sidelined by the needs of the family. The deeper the series went, the more it became apparent that these characters weren't simply fighting for their land. They were fighting for their own sense of self in a world where power and loyalty were often in direct opposition to personal freedom. In its final moments, Yellowstone turned the lens inward. As the stakes grew higher and the conflicts reached their boiling point, the show began to call out its own contradictions. The characters who had fought so fiercely to protect their land were now faced with the reality that their actions, everything they had done to secure their legacy, had ultimately trapped them in an unbreakable cycle of violence, betrayal, and family dysfunction. The Duttons, once portrayed as the heroic defenders of the American West, had become a symbol of the very things they had sought to avoid: greed, power hunger, and a willingness to sacrifice their own happiness for the sake of an ideal that no longer seemed achievable. This self-awareness became especially poignant in the final season, where the show's creators made a pointed critique of the very mythology they had built around the Dutton family. In a stunningly direct move, Yellowstone questioned the idea of legacy itself. Was it worth all the destruction it had caused? Was the fight for the land worth the personal cost? And perhaps most importantly, was the Dutton name worth holding on to if it meant sacrificing everything else? The show did this by introducing a number of characters who had once been on the periphery of the Duttons' world, but who now played pivotal roles in the final narrative. Chief Thomas Rainwater, Gil Birmingham, who had been a thorn in the side of the Duttons for years, became a symbol of the fight for sovereignty and justice, not just for his people, but for the land itself. Rainwater's character arc, which had been marked by a tense and often adversarial relationship with John Dutton, became a mirror to the Duttons' own internal struggles. As Rainwater called for a new vision for the future, one that wasn't based on power or greed, but on respect for the land and its people, Yellowstone seemed to ask, was it too late for the Duttons to change? In one particularly stunning moment in the finale, the show offered a moment of reflection for both John and his children. As the family gathered on the ranch, they faced a realization that the land they had fought for, this symbol of their power, might no longer be worth the cost. The violence, the lies, the betrayal, it all came crashing down. John, who had once seemed unyielding in his resolve, questioned whether the Dutton name was truly worth protecting anymore. His children, who had each followed their own paths over the years, were forced to confront the reality that they too had been complicit in the legacy of destruction the family had created. But the most baffling and poignant detail was the way Yellowstone played with the idea of legacy itself. The show had built a reputation around the Duttons' indomitable will to survive, to fight, and to protect what was theirs. But in the final moments, Yellowstone flipped this narrative on its head. The Duttons' unwavering commitment to preserving their legacy, through violence, manipulation, and sacrifice, was revealed to be the very thing that had destroyed it. The land, once a symbol of power and wealth, had become a symbol of their downfall. This meta-commentary on legacy and power left viewers with an undeniable question. What is worth preserving, and what must be let go? The show, in its final act, made it clear that the Duttons' grip on the past had become their undoing. Their need to hold on to a legacy that no longer fit the changing world had ultimately trapped them in a cycle of violence and betrayal. In the end, it was no longer about fighting for land or power. It was about understanding that some things are worth letting go of, even if it means breaking free from the very thing that defined you. As the credits rolled on the final episode, Yellowstone left us with a haunting question about the price of loyalty, legacy, and power, one that would linger long after the screen went dark.